Hey everybody, thank you for joining me today. It is going to be a fun hop. We're doing Beatrice's birthday YouTube hop, and our theme is birthday, and some of the ladies will be doing layouts, and I'm doing a card. I'm going to be using this stamp here. I just got it from it's actually part of their Paint a Flower subscription, so I've been getting that in every month, and I'm enjoying it because it's a big enough flower that you can color in, and it's a different flower each month, and you get different sentiments with it, so it works really nice. So in the Misty, I have some Arches watercolor paper. I want to say this is the cold press, and I'm inking up with VersaFine Black Onyx ink, the lilies, and let me see here. Yeah, it's the calla lily, and I've inked it up and stamped it twice, and this watercolor paper is so textured that you definitely have to ink it more than once. But the problem is, and it's a problem that I've had, and I don't know if other people have had, is that sometimes with the Misty, you don't think it moves, and then it shifts ever so slightly. And that little shift is enough to either make the image look blurry, or in this case, you're going to see here in a second, it actually made my lines like super thick. I don't want that either. So I'm going to turn it over and try and use the other side. Now, with most watercolor papers, one side is going to be more textured than the other, and it's true with this one as well. I initially started out on the more textured side, so this is the back side, which is a little bit smoother. But I think I wind up having the same problem, and I left it in here because, so many times with different videos and stuff, people always make it look like everything is so easy and it's perfect and they don't have any issues. And I'm a firm believer of keeping it as real as I can to let you know I struggle too. You know what I mean? And there are some times where no matter what you do, it just moves. Even with the magnets. It's a huge magnet up there at the top, and it still shifted. So on this second one, I was like, well, I'm not going to stamp again, because what if it moved and then I'm in the same situation? But in the center of my calla lilies, it's not sharp enough for me. So I decided to go off camera and stamp it again on 4 by 5 1/4 size watercolor paper. And it still wasn't super crisp in the center, but like I said, it's because of the texture. Okay, so since I'm using the Altenew stamp, I had to pull out the 36 pan set. I mean, logical, right? So I'm just gonna grab one of my water brushes, which is right behind me, and it's new. I haven't used it yet. There's water inside. I did put the water inside it, but I'm just squeezing it, trying to get the bristles wet. And then I'm going to go into, I didn't want the super bright yellow, but I didn't want the orange either, so I just decided to go like right in the middle. And this particular brush is a little bit more on the flat and square shape, so it was enough to be able to do the coloring in of the lilies. But when I get to the leaves, I do switch out the water brush pens, because sometimes you just need something that's more rounded, so you have a little bit more control. All right, and the best part, what I like about the water brush, is that you put your water in, and it gives you, sometimes it can feel like it takes control away from you, especially if you're someone who's used regular just paints and brushes for painting normally. But if you're someone who doesn't do it a whole lot, if you start with these, you can really figure out the best method, like the water to paint ratio, how much to squeeze the brush, how much not to. So obviously the more water you squeeze, the more fluid and probably more true traditional watercolor the paints get. The less water you use, even a regular watercolor can look a little bit more opaque because you're not using a whole lot of liquid, right? So depending on how you use your water brush can determine a lot. And these are true watercolors as far as the Ultra New watercolor set, whereas the other colors I've been using, the gouache, those are meant to be more opaque watercolor. So for them, they work opposite. They're thicker. They're supposed to be thicker and more opaque, and you're not really supposed to add a lot of water because that does break it down and then turn it into more of a watercolor, a true watercolor element. So they kind of work opposite of each other, but very similar. So right now I'm using the darkest green, and just like with the yellow, if you want different shades or different sections, grab more of the ink for your darker areas and then use a little bit more water in the brush to smooth out to get like a little bit lighter sections. And another trick with watercolor is always add layers. Once you put one set of colors down, if you want a little bit more definition, let it dry a little bit and then go back in with some more color in your shadow areas. And that'll help give you a little bit of added dimension. And kind of like right in here, I realize my hand is kind of off camera, and I am gonna wind up pulling up the picture a little bit. So it's kind of on there, but now you can at least see what I'm doing with the brush. And I always leave the image, the packaging close to me, because one of the great things about these sets is they do give you sort of like an example on the back. Because when I first saw this stamp, I was like, well, which part is the lily and which part is the leaf? I couldn't tell because there were certain parts that kind of looked like it was a calla lily, but the way they colored it, I was like, oh, okay, so that is a leaf. For sure, that's a leaf. So definitely don't feel overwhelmed. Don't feel like, you have to be perfect. They give you tools with the stamps to help with your process. So that way you don't have any issues with your coloring. And even if you do color one of them to look like a calla lily, who cares? The stamp police isn't going to come to the house and be like, you used that wrong. You know what I mean? Stuff happens. That's one of the best parts of crafting, is the fact that we can take little licenses here and there. All right, now we're just going through and making sure that I got all my stems and areas, small areas covered with the green ink. Or watercolor, I should say. And I was so tempted. I'm gonna tell you guys, I was really thinking like, ooh, should I splatter? Should I splatter? Not splatter? Ooh, I didn't know what to do. With the scrap paper over on the side, I'm just once again squeezing out some water and putting down that color, because you never know, once it dries, I could always punch different elements out of those and use them as elements. So now that we have that there, I'm going to grab my cutting tool and some paper, some Nina, I think Nina, the 110 weight for my base. And I'm just trying to lay down on this right here an idea for my sentiment. So I have birthday wishes, which I've used on a previous card, which is why it's right here ready for me to use. I'm looking at this stamp of approval that I've had from Catherine Pooler, and this one, it had more sentiments than it did or like inside parts to me than it did just regular happy birthday or whatever. So I grab a oldie but goodie. This is from Simon Says Stamp, and I love this stamp set so much. I wind up losing, I think, one of the stamps got damaged somehow. And I was like, you know what? I really want to be able to use this big birthday and like the little happy and stuff like that. But it turns out for this particular project, the birthday was just a little bit too big because I didn't want it to stamp on top of the calla lily itself. So I got to look at something else. I have the long happy birthday where it's in like a cursive. So I put that there and I'm thinking, okay, I could put it in the center. I could put it off to the right or to the left. But then on my old stamp, I had cut the happy birthday in half. So I'm like, well, let me grab this one and see. Would it fit down here in the little bottom? Do I like it on the top or do I like it on the bottom? Or do I want it on top but using the cut in half one so I can have happy and birthday? And as soon as I put that up there, I was like, yeah, I want it right there. That's where I want it. So I'm going to put the long one back on its new one because I got two of them now. But on that one, I'm not going to cut it in half. I'm going to leave it long so that way when I want it just to say happy birthday straight across, I can use it. So I'm putting those back into the sheet and we're going to move some stuff here and grab the Misty tool. And I'm going to take the calla lily out, move it to the side, and then I'm going to clean up some of the ink from when I had to close the stamp. And then we're going to put our image in there and get ready to line it up to stamp our sentiment. Which I think even here, I'm looking for this, it's almost like a little acetate sheet. Yes, with the grid. Now this I got because I've noticed people had been using them. I got it also from Simon Says Stamp. And what it does is while you have it over your image in the Misty, you're able to line up where you want your sentiments to go and to get it straight. Then once you have it placed, you're going to put the door down, grab your stamp, and then you can take the grid paper out and stamp down on your image and it'll go exactly where you want it. Which is kind of what I did. So once I moved that and I put my magnet down, I'm going to stamp down and kind of hold it up. So I'm looking at it directly to make sure it's definitely straight and where I want it. Now I'm taking my Versaclear Nocturnal ink and I'm going to ink it up and stamp. And then I'm going to open it again and stamp again. I think I wind up stamping it 3 times. Because I wanted to make sure it was nice and crisp. Because remember, this watercolor paper is textured. So you just want to make sure that it's nice and covered. Clean up any smudges. It's usually on the Misty. I don't worry about it because nothing gets on the paper. But I still like to clean it up just out of habit. All right. And then what I decided to do, I'm going to close that up and then grab the clear embossing powder. So that way the sentiment, I can give it like a little shiny look. You can also do that to your stamp image and it'll just create almost like little wells for you to color in if you're a beginner and you need that. It doesn't hurt. A lot of people emboss before they color. It just gives you a little bit of guidance, and if you get a little wet handed, it'll prevent your colors from blending in. Okay, so now that that's done and I knocked off all the extra powder, I'm going to grab my heat tool. Once it's heated up, we're going to go ahead and melt the sentiment, and that'll make it nice and shiny and give it a little bit of definition. Look at that. I like that. It's so simple and pretty, and it would make a great really all occasion card. Thinking of you, happy birthday. You can use it for sympathy. Thank you. Did I say thank you already? I don't know. But there's so many different cards you can use this for. And I just think it's, it's fun. It's super quick to color. It doesn't take a long time because though it's flowers and leaves, the images are big enough. It doesn't take that much to color it in. All right, so our A2 size card was 4 1/4 by 11, and we're scoring it at 5.5. And at first, I was just gonna put the focal image down, and then I was like, okay, I need something to separate it, because though the watercolor paper isn't pure white, it's still blending into the background. So I grabbed some black paper that I had over in my, I guess it's almost like my little scrap area, and I'm cutting it down. I think I cut it too short, and then I wound up having to cut it again, but I think it winds up being, it's perfect. So my colored panel is 4 by 5 1/4, and then our matte piece is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And that just gives us a nice border. And then once we tape around the back, we'll be able to go ahead and glue that to the top folding card. And top folding cards are probably my favorite to use, because I like the fact that it can be top folding. You can still do a side card. It just depends on, personal taste. But I do like using the top folds a lot. Okay, and then once we put this on nice and evenly, anything that like a smudge or anything like that, I just use the eraser to kind of get those off, and really the card is done right there, right? It's so cute and adorable. It would work. It would be a beautiful card for anybody to receive. Well, I still wanted to do some gold. So to give me some splatters and not have it go too crazy, I'm using the Jen Hadfield color spray, the gold. I'm just trying to mix it up because thankfully this clear bottle, you can see where all the pigment kind of settles, and it has a metal ball inside that if you shake it around, you're shaking up all the mica and the powders or whatever they use to kind of create that color, so that way you get a nice, really pretty gold when you put it down. All right, so I didn't want to go too crazy, and with the gold itself, it's just a little bit of something that doesn't really stand out or take away from the Cali lilies. I think it just enhances it. And then here I'm like, well, I gotta show you guys a little bit more, right? Because yeah, we stamped, we colored, we did a little heat embossing. So now I'm going to show you how to finish the inside of your card. Now this is all thanks to Amy R, or Amy R Savvy, I think is her name, on YouTube. She always does something on the inside of her card, and I've been probably following her since I started watching YouTube more than 5 years ago, and it's one thing that I've done here and there, but I don't do on a regular. I really don't. Like, I'll do a lot of cards with nothing on the inside, and then at the last minute I need a card and I'm trying to figure out what am I going to put on the inside. Probably counteractive, considering the fact that you have a card that's done, it should be ready to go. But it is what it is. So I decided to grab my gold delicata, and I lined up the Cali lilies in the very bottom left hand corner. And thankfully, with where this is situated, I'm going to be able to stamp this twice so that the gold stands out. I need to get a refill for this, and I haven't had the chance to get one, but I am in desperate need because my pad has never been overly juicy. So now that I don't use it all the time because it was never very strong in color, it's even worse now because it is drying out. But eventually someday I will get a refill. So I'm bringing that grid sheet out again, and we're going to line up our inside sentiment. And this sentiment is count your life by smiles, not tears. Count your age by friends, not years. And then you can write your message of happy birthday inside. And that inside greeting I got from Gina K. When I first started crafting, I was just buying stuff at the big box stores, and then I happened to find Stamp TV on YouTube, and I started watching that, and I wind up buying this stamp set from Gina K, like the first online order I ever did. And I haven't looked back. I've used this stamp consistently. They're great inside the card sentiments. And just look, I mean, a little bit of hint of gold of that, Calla Lily on the inside. And then the sentiment, it just really turned out awesome. And I just want you guys, make sure you follow the hop. This is going to be so much fun. All these ladies coming together to celebrate Beatrice's birthday. And make sure everyone you go to, like the video, leave a comment, and if you can or you don't mind, definitely subscribe. They're really great ladies, and I don't think you'll be disappointed. Thanks again, you guys, and I hope you have a great day.